Thank you everyone for joining me. Right. I'm walking away from the microphone, which I've been told I can't. I have to stay here. Right, my name's Neil Lyons. I'm pen tester, involved in a wide range of security testing. Social engineering is my favourite. If you've ever been to my talks before, you'll know I start off with this. I work for Team Netitude. I'm supposed to be here today talking about enemies of the West. What happened at the start of the year, I submitted to a load of conferences, not knowing which conferences would pick me. And this was one of the talks that got picked by another conference. So I've decided today to actually do something completely different. So if you've read anything in the book about my talk, it's completely irrelevant. So today, and it's got a catchy title. There you go. How to bypass email gateways using common payloads. Right. Just wait. There's no rush. Right. Chapter 1, Payloads. Okay. A lot of my talks, I've spoken a lot about payloads and how to sort of get them and what to do once you've got them and how to get domain admin. It was pointed out to me recently, I've never actually really sort of spoken a little bit more in depth about these payloads. I tend to just go, here's a payload, this is what it does. So, macro payloads. What is a macro? If people didn't really know what a macro is, it is basically a series of commands and instructions that you group together and can be accomplished automatically by the computer once it's instructed to do it. How can you use it? I'm very much interested in legitimate functionality. I think it beats pretty much any kind of, clever zero-day remote code executable. If you do some actual legitimate functionality, it's going to slip past antivirus, and it's just more interesting to me. So basically, macros is legitimate functionality that can be used maliciously. You can use it to get remote access. Now, I'm also interested in OLE payloads. What is an OLE? Okay, an OLE is object linking and embedding. It's a proprietary technology by Microsoft and allows you basically to take something and embed it into another object. So, give an example. Microsoft Word document, you can embed a payload directly into that. How can you use it? Remote access. Recently, there's been lots of talk about OLEs. I'm going to get into that a bit later on. But both macros and OLEs require user input to trigger. Now, this is how you would trigger an Office macro. If you look there, you have to do enable content, and once you click that, it will run your payload automatically. OLE is roughly the same, but you don't have the big warning banner. All you have is the embedded object at the bottom, which is the PDF and Excel sheet there. And if you were to click on either of those, you'll get a shell. OLEs are less common, but they're becoming more common. There was something recently interesting on Twitter that was interesting. Someone was suggesting they are becoming more common because of the securities put in place to stop macros. People have looked at sneakier ways of getting payloads into sort of environments. How can you use these, or how can you create these? This is what I personally used to create most of my payloads recently. I started using Dave Kennedy's Unicorn, which is fantastic. Unicorn payloads use PowerShell and Metasploit framework. Right, so time for a demo. Is that just going to play? Bingo, right. So here we are, we're opening up a Word document, and the macro is there, and on here we've got our attacker's machine. We've clicked on the macro, and you'll see we're receiving a session back. So what can you now do with that very quickly? Right, we're interacting with it, and we're now on their local machine, controlling it remotely as that user's rights. And quickly go through system information just to prove that we can see stuff. There you go, done. Right, I'm now going to go to the OLE, and I'm going to get a bit more in depth in a bit, and it'll be a bit more interesting than this, trust me. Right, so here we've got an OLE, and you can see there, to open it, and then you have to click that. And once the users click that, it triggers, opens up PowerShell, you'd make that invisible normally, and you'll get your reverse connection. Right, and the final one, which I'm not going to talk about today, but if you want to see any more information about it, just see any of my other talks, is the UNC, which you'll see in a minute. Just finished on the video. I like talking about UNC a lot normally. And exit. I don't use live videos because they're demos because it never works in the day. I always flap and panic. Right, here, I'm opening the final one. I've got responder listening here on my attacking machine. We open the document, and from opening it, I've got the username, the domain name or Windows machine name, and the password hash, which we can crack. I've spoken about that loads before. I'm not going to talk about that today. Right, I use these payloads. And the following are really good at blocking macros and OLEs. I bang my head against the wall numerous occasions on tests, knowing that my payloads, which I've spent ages crafting, are being blocked. A quick look at what mail gateways block. Now, I was quite interested in how we can bypass this, and there's lots of clever scripts out there that do this for you. Some of them work, some of them don't. And I sort of stumbled across something accidentally, which I'm going to talk to you today about it, and I think this is possibly the first time it's been spoken about. Right, commonly generated word macros and OLE macros, they're also always going to be blocked. Anything that you use using a common framework is going to be blocked straight out of the hat. There's no way you're going to get around it. So all of these, especially these 0 days, they're all going to be blocked. Anything with .executable in it, anything that references PowerShell is going to be blocked. From experience, some environments just block every attachment going in. Now, I think this is a bit odd that they do this, but it works for them. So if you've got a small number of users, you can potentially do this. It seems odd to have a device that automates this for you and then to manually do it yourself, but it works. And I told a few people about this internally, and they're like, no, you're just paranoid. No one does that. But then on Twitter, as it happens, about a week ago, someone said this. It was basically saying that any single attachment can be used to exploit a machine. And this was the reply. Now, I've slightly censored it after the or, because he swears. And I don't like to have swearing in my talks. But basically, it's a good example of someone. He just doesn't accept them. And I've had clients turn around to me and say, yeah, we don't accept them. We just block them all and manually review. So it's hard to get stuff past that. But the proxies you can get around. Right. First off, I'd like to mention that all those mail sort of appliances that I've just discussed, they're all good. You need them. And they are important, but they're not foolproof. So how do they work? I think, and this hasn't been concluded, but I've come to my own sort of concept that they work a bit like antivirus. They use signatures. They say they don't, and I'll see this a lot, but from reading sort of research documents and PDFs that they've released, they'll say, no, we don't use signatures. But the thing is, I think that they do use signatures. And I kind of figured this out by starting to look at macros, which I discovered at the start of this research project is a really, really bad place to start. The problem with macros are they're so common. Even if I can never say the word, obfuscate it with an inch of its life, there's a chance it's still going to get picked up by one of the gateways. You get it through maybe one, but you won't get it through all of them. But I did discover an interesting find by looking at it. Now, this I'm about to show you here is a really bad slide. I don't know if you can see it particularly well. I don't like to do code on slides because it just doesn't look good. But the main interesting bit is, I can't even find it myself. There we go. If you look at ends I and J, then there's an equal sign, and you can start to see running right the way across. It's PowerShell.exe, and this is from Unicorn. Now he's broken it up. Dave Kennedy's broken it up to try and get it to slip past these sort of devices, and there you go. Makes it a little bit clearer to see. So what I found was if you delete it, and I think this is an interesting find. It didn't get me a shell, but I still thought it was interesting. If you delete it and then add the macro to a Word document and attempt to deliver it, it gets blocked. Now, if you used exactly the same macro minus that one line that references PowerShell in an Excel document and then deliver that, that gets delivered past these two. So I'm starting to think signature. But interesting was it got blocked by that. And I was quite happy about this. It's quite good to have different results. It kind of shows that they are looking for different things. But that's the interesting thing. Basically, different Office documents with the same macro, you might get a little bit further. So anyone who's interested in macro sort of research, it might be worth considering. Don't use Word documents anymore. Use something else. Right, it's time for a different approach. And I wanted to go back to looking at OLEs. Now, here is a classic. If you Google OLE exploitation, this is the kind of thing you're going to see. And I think that looks hideous. If I did that on a test, or if any of the testers I work with used a document that looked like that, I'd probably verbally slap them. I think you should make it look a bit prettier than that. But in essence, you click on that, and there you go. They're going to get a shell. Right. OLEs, just because I didn't sort of mention it earlier on, is basically generally created by making a shortcut in Windows. And the shortcut references PowerShell. They're just in case we've all seen shortcuts, but I like to be fully. And there you go. There's a shortcut in Windows, and that's what you would drop in there. Now, what this does, I can explain it to everyone, is it obviously goes to the directory of PowerShell, runs PowerShell, then tells it to go to download and execute that payload there from that IP address. So in essence, it's basically, it's not in essence, what it does, it says go to this destination, download this payload and execute it. Now, do common gateways and appliances catch the above OLE? There's the answer. Yeah, it's made with a framework that everyone knows. They're going to be using that themselves in the labs, I would hope. So how do you get around this? Right, I'm being a bit patronising here, but remembering I think they're signature-based. Let's see what happens when I took the word PowerShell and replaced it with MS Paint. Now, I know I should have used calc.exe. When I first, I'm sure other talkers will be the same. They get their work viewed by other people before they do it publicly. And everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you using MS Paint? I have my reasons. Right. So I created that, saved it as an email, waited 15 minutes, because even though all these appliances say they don't slow down your mail transit, the minute you get rid of them and send the email, it's instant. The minute you put one of these devices in front, it takes quite a long time to get it through. Anyway, delivered. Right, win. So I went back to research, and I downloaded this from Semantic, and there's the link at the bottom if anyone wants to download it. So you can see I didn't just Photoshop it and make it up. In this, they basically highlighted it, and it says that unlike other solutions, slapping someone else, they don't use signatures. Basically, they insinuate that. Well, you're going to be thinking, if you swap an obvious word like PowerShell with a non-obvious word like calc, or potentially there would be signature in calc, but MS Paint, it works. So I came up with this. I think they're confused. So what have we learned? Email gateways consider PowerShell to be malicious. They think it's the thing of the devil. Okay, and what did I learn from this? Right, swapping PowerShell with MS Paint results in a payload that attempts to start MS Paint, gets confused, and ends with an error. Thank you, my boss said no one would laugh. Right. Right. Thank you, I will. You can watch it on YouTube. Right, so it's a useful proof of concept. Okay, so let's take a relook. What I then did, going back to the drawing board, was I tried to sort of tweak and get rid of the directory. And tried a few other things like this, chopping it up, and it still got caught. So I did the right thing. I called a friend, and he's in this room. Rich ain't even here for it. Right, here's my friend I called. He's outside. Well, he's not in it. All right. I basically phoned him and said, I want to call PowerShell. And there's loads of people in the industry who know about these clever ways of calling something without directly calling it. Thank you.
Could you have used the numeric ASCII cells to call it in single quotes instead of using double quotes?
Yeah, I probably could have. There's probably multiple ways of doing it. The thing is, like most things in research, you have a very, very limited amount of time. And it's just bang, 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 get it done. You've got a goal, complete it. And looking back now, yeah, there's a million ways to do this. I'm about to show something which is really embarrassing, and I probably shouldn't be showing you, but I'm going to show you anyway, just for transparency. So it's recorded. Right. Anyway, he replied with this. And I think that is, right, it's a piece of artwork. The minute I saw it, I was like, what the hell does that do? But, yeah. I will release the slides at some point. So, I've known about this for about 2 months, and I've been trying hard not to tell anyone because I wanted to release it at this conference, so you're getting it all fresh. So I guess this is quite interesting stuff. This isn't obviously found by my friend, but he knew where to find it to reference it for me. So and what I'm about to do, don't worry, if you're thinking, I was thinking, what the hell does that do? But as most testers, arrogant, don't want to ask, so I sort of tried to figure it out myself. Right, here we go. So as you can see, I'm copying it from there. And I'm going to create a bat file because I'm old school and I still like bat files. Drop it in. Don't know what I'm watching, I've seen it. Double click it, and there we go, PowerShell. So it calls PowerShell without directly referencing PowerShell. So is that going to slip past the signature? Right, we drop it in CMD so you can see run it from others and there we instantly get a PowerShell, well not session, but a PowerShell terminal. Right, great. So we can call PowerShell on the slide, but does this slip past the gateway? Right, so I made the shortcut for the OLE. And there you go, there's the thing of beauty. A lot of people will give you these references, like, oh, this starts PowerShell without, and then they don't sort of go on to show you actually working with a proof of concept shell. And I always think, it only takes me over 15 minutes to figure that bit out, which is really embarrassing. But I like to see the real, this is how it works, and there you go, highlighted, it downloads, there's the payload, and there's referencing PowerShell. Okay, but shortcuts, as I discovered quite rapidly after this, I was really headbutting the wall at this point, is a no-go. I don't know whose idea it was, but a 260 character limit on a shortcut is pretty restrictive when you're trying to do that. So it's like literally, I was so close. I thought, this is wicked. I'm going to get this. This is going to get past the Malfuck gateways. Anyway, it's like, and this bit here, I put, just in case the FBI ever decide to restrict me at a border, simulated, not real. Right, someone slaps you back. There you go, I am insane. An email proxy laughs at me. Right, so shortcuts have limits. And this is when I started to stumble across something else. Chapter 2. Right, roll on the bat. I said I'm old school. Can you even email a bat file? This was the first thing I had. So I tried to send a bat file just dropped into an email. And Outlook makes it really hard for you. It really goes out of its way to stop you from doing it. You got a big warning going, it's not going to work. Don't do it. It's unsafe. You're obviously up to something malicious. Right, you go okay, because it lets you. And then it blocks you. And as you can't see that, that's what it says. So even though it does let you arguably send it, it then automatically, as a client, Outlook will block it. So no, you can't email bat files. But you can embed one into an Office document and email that. And that's when I sort of named something PowerBat. I wanted to, everyone's got a name for everything. I wanted a name. Right. And there you go, it's a piece of beauty. So it's involving the command. It downloads the payload and it triggers it on the box, all running. So obvious, so clear. It's like literally, I won't tell you how many days of work. It's embarrassing because you look back and think, I should have done that in 2 minutes. It's like, some smart person would have. Right, how do you embed it? Now, I know how to embed OLEs. I'm about to show you something I'm a little bit embarrassed about, but it actually does raise a slightly interesting question, which I will say afterwards. But in the meantime, initially I came up with this horrid solution. And warning, if you have any sense of style or pride in your work, please look away. Right, how not to embed. Okay, I will talk you through this as I'm doing it. Right, here we go. I'm copying the command, blah, 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 blah. And I go over here and I create a bat file. Now, this is something interesting I found. When you just drop a bat file, and I've ruined the what not to do here, but when you just drop a bat file into a document, it has a massive warning saying, this is insane, don't do this, it's ridiculous. But if you save it and then tweak the names, you rename it afterwards, and just put a dot at the start, and then you put a load of white space and then have another dot, your warning is really small. It sort of minimizes the warning, which was a fluke. This isn't like, I discovered this because I'm smart. Not at all. It was a total fluke. So here we go. I'm about to drop it in. I probably did, yeah. So I did notice if you go too far with it, it won't let you save it. So you do realise you hit a limit. There's a 260 character limit, I think, probably somewhere around that. But you see there, it's a really small warning now, where before that would have filled the entire box I'm about to maximise. So just from changing the name, you get that interesting find. Right, so what the hell am I doing here? It really is wrong. I'm trying to entice people to click on it. Now what I've noticed is if you look, there's the warning, but when you drag it down, anywhere that's in that box, if you click on it, it'll run the bat file. And yes, I know there's a better way to embed it, which I'm going to do later. And I knew before, I was experimenting. And yes, I hide it. It's like proper late. This is like, next year, Black Hat and DEFCON, this is how you embed a bat file. Right, so, right, there's an interesting thing here. I ruined the end, but at some point, the person earlier sort of said OLEs are dead for a reason. I'm going to touch on that. That's embedding the document. If someone's insane enough not to bother embedding it properly and do something as ugly as this, they may not have thought of this. Just saying it's worth always sort of messing around with things. Right, so I'm actually going to trigger it. I'm going to save it just to prove it does work. It doesn't start MS Paint and panic and die. And there we go. And again, you'd make that invisible normally. And there goes the session. So yes, that works. But does it work? Just check. I won't just forward it just yet. Here we go. Go on. There you go. So it works. Right, so I emailed it via the gateways. Did it get delivered? Anything? Passed them all. So I finished for a night, happy, proud, and thought, was it the ossification, which I can't say. So I retried in the morning, exactly the same process, minus anything smart, just with that. And there it is. You can see. Embedded it in the typical way this time, so I'm not completely insane. Typical way is you go to Insert, Objects, and Packages, and then you give it the destination of your bat file or whatever you want to do, and change the image to make it look even more potentially malicious. These are all things they should be picking up on, and then drop it in. So this is done in the classic way of doing an OLE. It says there. The only difference being is the shortcut has been now replaced with the bat file, which I showed on the video earlier. Right, and sent it. Bang. So, yeah, same PowerShell request, different medium gets through. I don't want to explain my theory yet. I'll get to that. Right, I'm now going to get back in time. So on this date, I emailed that to the world. And I won't say arrogant things like I think this is the first time this has been discovered, or potentially use the term 0 day or anything like that, because I think, well, someone's going to say, no, it's not. It was done back in the 60s or 70s or 80s or something. Someone will slap you down. But I emailed that, and 21st of July, so not shortly, not long after, that pops up. Now, he's a very, very good researcher, but basically, someone's decided to ruin my fun, and OLEs are going to be banned in Microsoft Office documents ongoing. So Microsoft Office, released in 1990, waits 27 years to block bat files. So literally, this is like the character limit. Someone was against me on this. And then does it 14 days after I discover it. Now, what is interesting, I was told that this is probably me being a bit paranoid, but one of Microsoft Office managers liked one of the tweets that I put, and then it gets blocked. So it just seems interesting. Right, the tweets that people have been, I've tried to get hold of a copy of Office that blocks them, and I want to see, because it just says it blocks basically certain objects that are embedded. So I want to see whether it includes bat files. Secondly, I want to know whether if you just slap it in there, is it going to consider that as malicious and block it? I suspect not. I suspect they've missed it. Right. Eventually, it will filter down into all versions of Office. It's Office 365 at the moment, I've been told, but it will filter down into everything. Now, so is the OLE dead? I wanted to play, and I needed to update Office. Now, I don't particularly, in my research, update Office very often. So I had to have a little stumble across. It's not intuitive. And this is how you update Office if you don't know. You basically go to on this is Office 2010. I'll get to why I use Office 2010 in a minute. You stumble across it under File, under Help, which is not very intuitive. And when you do that, it then redirects you. It opens up IE, of all things, and redirects you to the online normal downloads, which seemed odd to me. Why would Office not update itself from itself? I don't get why I then have to go to Windows Updates. But there you go, so Windows Updates. And a lot of people are going to receive that when they attempt to update it. Let's say if someone was interested in updating their Office, they're going to receive that. It's run by you administrators. And in 2017, we still find that. So cynic in me starts to think, are people going to update Office? And I don't know. The other thing is I do lots of internal testing, I do lots of remote testing, and lots of social engineering testing, as I said before. Office 2010 is still really, really common. Support's dead. It's ended. So that's not getting updated. It's got extended support still, but I don't know how many people have extended support. So I think the OLE isn't dead, and I think we'll be able to use it for a few years still to go. So I think research into this area is still valid. And once research into this area is completely dead, I'll move over to HTAs, because it's pretty much the same concept to a certain extent, apart from that's via a browser. Right, so why does this happen? I think they use signatures. I think they look for typical words, typical frameworks, typical things, and then just blocks on that. I think it doesn't block bat files because it assumes Outlook will automatically do them potentially. I don't know, but I've watched lots of talks this year, really good talks on antivirus, bypassing techniques, and things slip past. Now, this is something I'd like to quote. I thought it was really, really good. It's a really, really good blog. Black Hills InfoSec, if anyone can't read it. Basically, it says there, so you change the template and things slip past AV. So if you change the language, the same payload will slip past AV. Now, I think a bat file, in essence, is just a container, and a shortcut is just a container. So you change the container, there you go, they slip past. That's my opinion. Right, the final dance, chapter 4. Now, someone might shout down no at this point, but what is a bat file? Wikipedia arguably says it is loosely connected to the scripting languages. Yeah, you could say it's not, you could say it is. There's pros and negatives. I think people instantly, it's a good point. You can do that. It's unlimited what you can do. It's functionality. Functionality is almost better than an exploit any day, in my mind. And it's pretty much unlimited what you can do. Not quite true, but you can do a lot with it. There's millions of things you can do with it that we haven't discovered yet. We should be finding more and more. Right, so let's say they do block it though. Let's say that files are finally blocked. There's loads of other scripting languages. Change the language, change the template, and things slip past. I have no idea how long I've spoken for. I think it's roughly about 30 minutes.
Yeah, fine.
Are there any questions?
What's your email handle again?
Thank you. It's like magic. It's like 217 slides. I just whittle through it. I told you I'd do it quick. Right, if anyone does want to follow me, I'll follow back, and you can ask me questions on that. I hope you enjoyed it.